It was nearly 11:30 when Dean came home. Our porch light flickered like it always does when the wind picks up, but I knew something was wrong the moment I saw him through the kitchen window. He walked slower than usual. Not like he was tired, like he was weighing his next step. His hair was a mess, disheveled and damp from the misty rain, and there was a streak of something across his collar. Dirt, I thought. Or maybe blood. He didn't greet me when he stepped inside. Didn't reach for my waist like he used to do out of habit, if not affection. He just said, "We need to talk." I sat down at the kitchen table before he asked me to. There was an accident, he said, on Sycamore. A woman walked out too fast and I didn't see her. I blinked. "Are you okay?" He nodded once. "She's in the hospital, alive but bad off." "What do the police know that someone hit her and kept driving?" He paused, then added, "No one saw me." I stared at him. Then, "Why are you telling me?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out his car keys, placing them in front of me like a dare. "Because I need you to say it was you." I almost laughed. Almost. But Dean didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't ask. He expected. "Dean," I said carefully, "you left the scene of an accident. No one can prove it. Not yet. But if they come asking your records cleaner, you'd get a light sentence, maybe probation. And what about you? I'd lose everything. The business, my license, our name. Our name. Think about Liam," he said. "Do you want his father in prison?" There it was. The lever. The familiar guilt he knew I couldn't ignore. Liam was 15. Too smart. Too sensitive. He adored Dean and feared him just a little, the way kids do when love comes with terms. "Say you were driving," Dean repeated. "Say you panicked. No one saw it. The police don't have anything. It'll be over in a month." I didn't speak. Dean took my silence as agreement. He kissed the top of my head like he was thanking me, then went upstairs. And I sat there staring at the car keys, wondering when my marriage had turned into a courtroom. The next morning, I pretended everything was fine. I packed Liam's lunch, watered the plants, and set out a clean blouse for work. I watched Dean from across the kitchen. He buttered toast like it was any other Tuesday. He even hummed. "Are you sure no one saw anything?" I asked. He shook his head. Fog was thick. No witnesses, not even a camera. "I checked this morning. You went back to the scene, just to be sure." The way he said it, calm, methodical, chilled me. He wasn't afraid. He was calculating. And I realized this wasn't the first time Dean had asked someone to protect him. It was just the first time he'd asked me to become complicit. That evening, while Dean took a call in his study, I opened his jacket from the night before. In the pocket, a crumpled receipt from a gas station 10 minutes from the accident site. Time stamped just 20 minutes after the reported hit and run. A piece of fabric was still caught in the grill of his car, barely visible behind the license plate. He hadn't even cleaned it properly, because he never thought I'd look. He thought I would obey. After dinner, Dean sat beside me on the couch and turned on the news. The story was buried behind weather updates and school board elections, but it aired. Local woman 42 struck by vehicle on Sycamore Avenue, critical condition, no suspect yet. They showed a photo, a smiling woman with soft eyes and shoulder-length hair. The kind of face that makes people believe things will be okay. Her name was Adrienne Baker. Dean didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't even breathe differently. And that was the moment something shifted in me. Because if he could hit someone and not feel a thing, what else had he done that I didn't know? Later that night, I stood at the bathroom mirror brushing my hair. Dean walked in, leaned against the door frame. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "We'll get through this. But I need you to be strong for us." "For us," I repeated. He nodded. "You've always had the steadier hands." I smiled. A small, quiet, terrifying smile, because he didn't realize those hands were already moving the pieces. Not to save him, but to finally free myself. The night of the accident, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the silence, but because of what I hadn't heard. Dean always came home loud, keys jangling, heavy steps, cursing about traffic or the school board or something the contractor forgot. But that night, he came in like a ghost. No sound. Just the closing door and the faint creak of leather as he sat in the dark. I didn't ask questions then. I told myself it was a bad day. That's what I've always done, fill in the blanks with something softer. But looking back, the signs were there. The scrape on the side mirror. The stiff way he moved like his shoulder hurt. The stain on his pants, brownish, not quite blood, but not quite not. I told myself it was mud. That lie had an expiration date, and it was ticking. That morning, after I dropped Liam at school, I parked 3 blocks away and walked to Sycamore Avenue. I hadn't been there since our old friend's baby shower years ago, when the neighborhood still felt new and overgrown with promise. Now yellow tape fluttered like cautionary ribbon at a crime scene that barely made the news. I saw it. The shattered taillight glass, the dent in the telephone pole, and worst of all, the blood. It was faint, dried into the pavement, but real. That's when I realized he didn't just clip her. He hit her head on. I stood there for a long time, long enough that a neighbor peeked out from their porch. "You okay, hon?" she called. I nodded. Just trying to make sense of it. "You know her?" "No," I said, but it came out too fast. The woman squinted. "Well, they say she might make it. She's got a teenage daughter. Pretty thing. Quiet." I nodded again, unable to speak. "She walks that street every night," the woman added. "Same time. Every night, like clockwork." I walked away before I broke. When I got home, Dean was working in the garage. I stayed in the hallway and just listened. He was humming again. Fixing something, probably the dented fender, I thought. He'd always been handy when guilt wasn't in the way. I could smell the chemical burn of paint thinner through the walls. He was erasing her, piece by piece. That evening, I made lasagna, his favorite. Not because I wanted to please him, because I needed him comfortable, talkative. He poured us wine, relaxed, slipped back into the role of doting husband. "You're quiet," he said. "You still thinking about what I asked?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "You mean your demand?" He chuckled. "Don't make it sound ugly." "It is ugly." He leaned forward. "Miranda, no one's going to get hurt from this. She'll recover. You'll serve a short probation, maybe a fine. It's clean. Neat. You're asking me to lie to the law. I'm asking you to protect this family." "No," I said. "You're asking me to protect you." That night I didn't sleep in our bed. I stayed on the couch. Not because I was afraid he'd hurt me, but because I was afraid I'd say yes. And if I said yes once, I might never say no again. So I stayed awake and wrote down everything I remembered. Every detail. Every moment. Because I was going to build a timeline, not for the police, for myself. So I could see the truth without the lens of loyalty. The next morning, Dean brought me coffee. Said I looked tired. Said he could handle things if I wasn't feeling up to it. I told him I was fine. And I smiled. Because I'd just looked up Adrienne Baker's hospital. Room 402, critical condition. And I was going to visit her. Not as his wife. As hers. I lied to the nurse and said I was a family friend. I don't know why she believed me. Maybe I looked kind. Maybe I looked haunted. Maybe she just didn't care. The room was cold. Machines beeped in rhythm like lullabies for the half-alive. Adrienne lay there, tubes in her nose, bruises blooming down her arms. I took her hand. "I'm sorry," I whispered. And that's when it happened. Her fingers moved. Just a twitch. Then again. Her eyelid flickered. My breath caught. Adrienne and nothing. Stillness. Then her head turned barely but toward me. She blinked. One eye. once, and I knew she was in there, alive, aware, and remembering. There are two kinds of marriages: the kind that builds slowly from the truth like bricks laid with care, and the kind that survives by looking away. Mine was the second kind. I met Dean in my 20s. He was confident in the way that draws women who are too tired to guess anymore. I was just out of grad school, teaching during the day, grading papers until 2 a.m., a little lost, a little lonely. He was older, charming in a classic way. Always knew which fork to use. Always tipped generously. Always told stories that made everyone laugh even if I couldn't tell where the joke ended and the lie began. But I never asked. Because the first time I did, the very first time, was after I saw a message on his old flip phone. A woman's name. A kiss emoji. He told me she was just an old flame still friendly. And when I didn't push further, I learned something vital. That love, when it's shaped around silence, grows quieter every year until you forget the sound of your own doubts. There were other signs, of course. He started coming home late more often, claimed it was business drinks or board meetings. Once I found a receipt for a hotel room in his glove box. He said it was a mistake, part of a reservation he made for a client. And I believed him, because the truth would have ruined everything we'd built. Liam was 4 by then. Bright. Sensitive. He loved his father with a blind trust I didn't have the heart to spoil, so I made a habit of looking away. At the bruises on Dean's knuckles. At the empty bottles under the sink. At the way my body flinched every time his tone shifted from calm to sharp. I became an expert at reading the room and erasing myself from it. The first time I considered leaving, I had no money, no backup, no courage. I told myself I'd stay until Liam was older. Then I told myself I'd stay until Dean calmed down. Then I told myself he was trying. That was the word I clung to. Trying. Until trying became surviving. And surviving became silence. After I visited Adrienne in the hospital, something cracked open inside me. For the first time in years, I saw myself not as Dean's wife, or Liam's mother, or Ms. Cole the teacher, but as Miranda. The girl who used to write poetry. The girl who used to say no. The girl who once told her college roommate that she'd never stay with a man who made her feel small. She was still in there. Just forgotten. That night, I didn't cook dinner. Dean walked in and raised an eyebrow. "Take out again, I wasn't hungry," I said. He smirked. Nervous appetite. "It'll pass. You'll see. Once the story settles, it'll all fade." He picked at the bag of takeout, eating with his hands like it was a feast. I watched him like he was a stranger. "I went to the hospital," I said. He paused. "What?" "To see her. The woman you hit." He dropped the food. Stared. "Why would you do that?" "Because I needed to look at her. To see what you did." "Jesus." "Miranda." "She moved," I interrupted. She blinked. She heard me. His jaw tightened. "You're wrong," he said. "They said she's not responsive. They're wrong. You went behind my back. You asked me to destroy myself for you. I figured we were past asking permission." He didn't yell. That was worse. He sat back. Quiet. Calculating. "You do understand what this means, don't you?" "Yes," I said. "It means we both go down. Because now you're involved." I never agreed to lie. "You didn't stop me either." My chest tightened. This was how he operated. Not with fists, but with carefully wrapped guilt. Soft ropes that strangled. I stood. He didn't follow. But he said one thing as I left the room. "Don't forget Miranda. I've kept your secrets too." That night I remembered what he meant. The breakdown. After Liam was born. The months of therapy. The medication. The lost time. He was there for it. And he'd always made sure I knew it. He said it like love, but it wasn't. It was leverage. He'd held my silence like a card in his pocket for years. Now he wanted to use it. I walked into the guest room and sat on the edge of the bed, stared at my hands. They didn't shake. I used to think strength was loud, that it was yelling or slamming doors or screaming in courtrooms. But that night I realized strength is choosing to see what you've trained yourself to ignore, and I was done looking away. Dean said it would only be for a little while. Just until things cool down. He told me the next morning, coffee in hand, like we were discussing weekend plans and not criminal conspiracy. "They're not going to pin this on you," he said. "All you have to do is say you panicked. It'll look human. People understand panic." I stared at him from across the kitchen table, watching how effortlessly he rationalized what he was asking. How long, I asked. He smiled like we were allies. "A couple weeks? Maybe a month. And after that, things will settle. She's not going to wake up Miranda. Even if she does, she doesn't know who hit her. You take the heat now and we ride it out. That's what partners do. Partners." That word used to mean something to me, but all I could think of in that moment was how his version of partnership always came with escape routes for him. I stood and walked to the sink, my back to him. "Don't make me do this alone." He added, quieter now. That was Dean's tactic, a commanding whisper like guilt and intimacy all rolled into one. I didn't respond, because I was starting to understand that silence was the only power I had left that he didn't control. At school that day, I couldn't focus. I read the same sentence from a student essay 4 times and still didn't absorb it. "Are you okay, Ms. Cole?" one of my seniors asked. Elena. Sweet girl. Sensitive to shifts in energy. I forced a smile. "Just tired." She nodded slowly like she didn't believe me. Later in the teacher's lounge, I overheard 2 colleagues talking about the hit and run on Sycamore. "You hear they think the guy fled town?" "No, I heard he's still local. Cops are watching gas station cameras." I froze in place, coffee cup halfway to my lips. Dean had said there were no cameras, that he checked. But what if he was wrong? What if someone saw? That evening, I came home to the smell of grilled salmon. Dean had cooked. He always did that orchestrated small domestic gestures when he needed to soften the next manipulation. "Thought I'd take care of dinner tonight?" he said cheerfully. "You've been doing too much." "Thank you," I said, and meant it in a strange way. Because if he was trying this hard, it meant he was nervous. And if he was nervous, maybe he was starting to realize I wasn't folding. We ate in silence. Halfway through, Dean said, "You remember when we took Liam to the coast? That little Airbnb with the spiral stairs?" I nodded. "That's who we are, Miranda. We're a family. Not perfect, but real. And families protect each other." I put down my fork. "Dean," I said, "what if she wakes up?" He didn't hesitate. "Then we handle it. You say you panicked and fled. We'll get a lawyer. A good one. This doesn't have to destroy us. Us. Always us when it suited him. Never her. Never Adrienne. Never the woman lying in a hospital bed with tubes in her throat because of something he did." After dinner, I went to the garage. I needed to see the car again. He had cleaned it thoroughly. Too thoroughly. New paint. Clean tires. No trace of what had been there days before. But I noticed something in the back seat, a small rag shoved between the seat cushions. I pulled it out. It had a smear of blood on it. Dried, but real. He missed a spot. My stomach turned. I took the rag and folded it into a plastic sandwich bag. Then I buried it deep in my handbag. Insurance. The next morning, Dean was whistling in the kitchen. "I've been thinking," he said, "we should take a trip after this blows over. Just the 2 of us. Maybe Maine." I poured my tea in silence. "You ever seen a lighthouse up close?" he asked. "No," I said. "Then let's change that. Once this is over." I looked him in the eyes. "I'm not going to confess, Dean." He stopped whistling. "I'm not doing it," I repeated. If the police come, I'll tell them the truth. He stared at me, stunned into silence, and then slowly his expression shifted from shock to disappointment to something darker. You don't want to do that? He said. His voice had dropped an octave. You're threatening me now, I'm warning you. If I go down, we both go down. I never touched that woman. You knew, Miranda. You knew and said nothing. That's accessory. I said nothing because I was scared of you. That landed like a slap. He blinked, genuinely caught off guard. You're not the man I married, I whispered. And maybe you never were. For a moment I saw something behind his eyes, not anger but fear. True fear. Because for the first time I wasn't folding. I was standing. That night I didn't lock the door between the bedroom and the guest room. Not because I trusted him. Because I needed him to know I wasn't afraid. I slept lightly. But I slept. And in the morning when he kissed my cheek as he left for work, I didn't flinch. Because I was already planning my next move. And this time, it wouldn't be for us. It would be for me. The second time I visited Adrienne Baker, I didn't lie at the hospital desk. I signed in as Miranda Cole. Because I was done hiding behind anyone else's story. It had been 3 days since the accident. 3 days since Dean calmly placed his guilt in my lap like it was a favor. Since I held Adrienne's hand in that room and felt her twitch, not a reflex, not a flinch, a response. That blink haunted me. Not because it was eerie, but because it was alive. She wasn't gone. She was in there. And if she could blink, she could remember. Which meant Dean's whole no witnesses, no memory fantasy was already crumbling. He just didn't know it yet. But I did. And I planned to make damn sure he'd feel it. Room 402 was colder this time. They'd moved Adrienne to a different part of the floor with a slightly larger window and a quieter monitor. The nurse told me they'd reduced her sedatives. She's showing stronger brain activity, she said. Still no speech, but the eyes are responding. The daughter's been in once or twice. Poor thing. Just 17. 17. I swallowed hard. That was 1 year older than Liam. I stepped inside slowly. Adrienne lay still, her skin paler now with bruises shifting into sickly yellow. Her hair had been combed, braided loosely down one side. There was something soft about her presence even in this broken state. Hi, I whispered, sitting in the same chair I'd used last time. I'm Miranda. I came before. You might not remember me, but... I glanced at the door. No one listening. You blinked. When I said your name, you blinked. No response. The monitor kept its rhythm. But I think you know, I said gently. I think you remember more than anyone realizes. And I need you to try. My throat tightened. My husband hit you, Adrienne. His name is Dean Cole. He's trying to blame me. And I need you to wake up. I need you to tell them it wasn't me. Still no response. Then, just as I reached for her hand, her right index finger twitched. Once, then again. Then she blinked. Twice. I exhaled, shaky and overwhelmed. Oh my God, I murmured. Okay. Okay. I'm going to find your daughter, I said, standing. And then, I'm going to the police. But I didn't go to the police that day. Because I had one more person I needed to see first. The daughter. Her name was Casey Baker. I found her on Instagram. Public profile. Mostly photos of her dog and coffee and moody lighting through her bedroom blinds. A 17-year-old trying to process a reality she hadn't chosen. There was one photo that stopped me cold, a selfie taken outside Adrienne's hospital window. The same braid. The same soft features. The caption read, "Still fighting. I see you." I sent her a message. Hi, Casey. My name is Miranda. I'm connected to what happened. I'd like to talk. I think I know who hit your mom. I'm not a cop. I'm not looking for drama. Just truth. I didn't expect a reply. She answered within the hour. Where? We met at a quiet park near the hospital. She wore a black hoodie and jeans and sat on the far end of the bench like she wasn't sure if she should run or stay. "I'm not here to scare you," I said first. "You know who did it, I do. Why haven't you told the police? Because—" I hesitated. "It's complicated. And dangerous. But your mom?" She blinked at me. She moved. Casey's eyes welled up instantly. She turned away, pretending to look at her phone. "No one believes me," she whispered. "They think I'm being hopeful. Delusional." She heard me. "I'm sure of it." We sat in silence a few seconds. "My stepdad left when I was 9, she said suddenly. "It's just been me and my mom. She's everything. She works 2 jobs. She volunteers at a shelter. I don't even know who she pissed off to deserve this." "She didn't piss anyone off," I said. "She was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, with the wrong person." Who? I looked at her. "My husband." She didn't flinch. She just stared at me, her mouth slightly open. "Why would you protect him?" she asked. "I'm not." "You didn't go to the cops." "I went to your mom. And now I'm here. Because this has to be done the right way. Carefully." She looked down, then back at me. "You're scared of him." I was. "Are you still?" I thought about that. Then shook my head. "No," I said. "Not anymore." When I got home that evening, Dean was sitting in the living room, drink in hand, TV off. "You've been out," he said, without looking at me. "Yes." "With who?" I didn't answer. "Miranda," he said, his tone clipped. "We talked about this. You need to be smart about how this plays out." "No," I said calmly. "You talked?" I listened. He stood slowly. "You're not thinking clearly. You're reacting emotionally. This is exactly what I was afraid of." "I'm not reacting, Dean. I'm remembering." His face stiffened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I see you now. All of you. And you can't manipulate me anymore." He took a step toward me. I didn't back away. "If you lie to the police—" he began. "I'm not lying," I interrupted. "I'm going to tell the truth. You'll go down too." I raised an eyebrow. "I visited your car again. I found the bloody rag you missed. You didn't clean it as well as you thought." His eyes darkened. "I bagged it. Stored it. And if anything happens to me, the police will have it within 24 hours. Silence. The mask cracked just slightly. Then, for the first time in our marriage, Dean said nothing. He walked past me, poured another drink, and disappeared upstairs. And I stood there with my heart racing but steady, because I was no longer the woman who kept his secrets. I was the woman who would expose them. The police came 2 days later. Not in sirens, not in handcuffs. Just 2 plainclothes detectives in a city-issued sedan parking discreetly across the street and knocking on my door like they were delivering a flyer. Detective Sloan and Detective Marin. One older, one younger. One took notes. The other read eyes. I knew it would happen. Dean had told me it would. But still, when I saw their badges, something inside me slid cold. "Mrs. Cole," the older one asked. "Yes. We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding an ongoing investigation. You're not under arrest. This is just informal." "May we come in?" I stepped aside. Every inch of my house suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. The framed beach photo, the leather sofa, the ceramic angel on the mantel that Dean's mother gave us. Dean wasn't home. He was at his office, still pretending everything was normal. Liam was at school. I was alone. Except I wasn't. Not anymore. I had Adriana's blink. Casey's trust. The bloodied rag zipped in a hidden compartment in my purse. And for the first time in 20 years, I had myself. "We understand your husband drives a dark gray Lexus 2019 model," said Sloan. I nodded. "Was he home the night of the incident on Sycamore Avenue?" I paused. This was the moment. The moment that split a woman in two, the one who lies out of habit and the one who speaks out of courage. He came home late, I said. Approximately what time? Just before midnight. And you saw him? I did. Did he seem normal? I looked directly at Sloane. No. He seemed off. Rattled. They wrote that down. One scribbling, the other watching. What makes you say that his clothes were dirty? His hands were scraped. He smelled like rain and chemicals. What did he tell you? He said someone had stepped into the road too fast and that he hadn't seen her. More scribbles. A small nod. Did he say he hit her? Yes. Marin finally spoke. Did he say what he planned to do? He asked me to take responsibility, to say I was driving. A silence bloomed in the room, heavy and sharp. Did you? No, I said clearly. Why not? Because it wasn't true. Sloane closed his notebook. Mrs. Cole, are you willing to make an official statement? Yes, I said. I want to be clear. Protecting someone after the fact, even by omission, could be considered obstruction. I understand. Do you have any physical evidence I didn't speak? I just reached for my purse, unzipped the side, and pulled out the sealed sandwich bag with the rag inside. I found this in the backseat of his car, I said. He missed it when he cleaned the vehicle. There's blood on it. They stared. Why didn't you come forward sooner? I swallowed. Because I've spent half my marriage trained to ignore my instincts. And because I needed to be sure. They took the rag, gently wrapping it in a new evidence bag. We'll have to verify this. It might take time. I can wait. They stood. Sloane paused at the door. For what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. Then why does it feel like a betrayal? I whispered. Because you loved him, he said. Not because he deserved it. After they left, I sat down at the kitchen table, the same one where Dean first asked me to lie. I stared at the knot in the wood grain, the chipped edge where Liam used to bang his toy trucks, the dark spot from that spilled bottle of red wine when Dean had shouted during a dinner party and no one knew what to say. It wasn't just a table, it was an altar to all the compromises I'd made, and now it was the place I reclaimed myself. Dean didn't say anything when he got home, but I saw it in his eyes. He knew. His silence wasn't blank this time. It was charged. He didn't ask if I'd said anything. He didn't threaten. He just sat across from me and watched. I watched back. We stayed like that for 5 minutes. Then he stood up and went into his office. No apology, no denial, no fight. Only the quiet realization that the game was over and I wasn't playing anymore. That night I tucked Liam in. He'd been quiet lately, more observant, less playful. He looked up at me and asked, "Is Dad in trouble?" I froze. "What makes you say that I heard you talking?" "Last week. When you said, 'She blinked.' I know you were scared." My heart cracked. I sat beside him. "I don't want to lie to you," I said. "Yes. He's in trouble." And I told the truth. "Will he go to jail? I don't know." He nodded. Eyes brimming but dry. "Did you do it?" he asked. "No," I said with every cell in my body. "Okay," he whispered. I kissed his forehead. "Good night, sweetheart." And when I left the room, I finally cried. Not from fear, but from release. 2 days later, the phone rang. It was Sloane. We confirmed the blood matches the victim's type. We've also reviewed footage from the gas station near Sycamore. A Lexus matching your husband's was seen around the time of the accident. I said nothing. We're issuing a warrant. Just a matter of hours now. I thanked him. Hung up. Then I stood by the window watching the wind bend the trees. And waited. Not for him. For me. For the life that would begin after the door closed behind him for good. I thought the worst part of my marriage was this moment. The crime, the lie, the threat. But the truth is, the worst part was what came before, the things I had already forgiven, forgotten, or buried so deep they came back in dreams with no names. After I gave the police the evidence and waited for Dean's arrest, my body didn't relax. It stayed tight, on edge, because some part of me still didn't believe it was over. And then the memories started to return, not as images, but as feelings, sensations, smells. The way my skin used to crawl when Dean would walk behind me without saying a word. The subtle silences after certain parties when I'd wake up with a headache and no memory of how I got to bed. The chill of knowing deep down that something wasn't quite right, but never having proof. Until I remembered Danielle. Danielle was one of Dean's coworkers. Younger, bright. She worked in his office for 2 years and left suddenly, no goodbyes, no explanation. I remembered asking Dean once, "Whatever happened to Danielle?" He barely looked up from his paper. She moved, got a better job somewhere upstate. But now that I was listening to my gut, that answer didn't sit right. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked her up. She wasn't hard to find. Danielle Berger, now a personal trainer, living 2 towns over. No connection to Dean's company anymore. I messaged her through her business page, told her I was an old friend of Dean's, that I needed to ask her something important, that I wasn't selling anything, just chasing the truth. She replied that same afternoon, "Meet me somewhere public." We chose a bookstore cafe. Quiet, neutral, with walls of fiction to cushion the weight of reality. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked stronger now, leaner. Her eyes were harder. "Miranda?" she asked. I nodded. We sat, ordered coffee. She didn't waste time. "You want to know why I left?" I nodded again. She studied me as if deciding whether I could handle the answer. "He never touched me," she said. "Not technically, not in a way I could report. But he made the office feel unsafe. And when I told HR, they shrugged. What did he do? He'd corner me in the break room, talk about my body, tell me my energy was dangerous, like I was asking for attention. Then he'd get angry when I didn't laugh. He never left bruises, just bruised the air around me. My hands clenched in my lap. "Why didn't you press charges?" Danielle shrugged. "Because it would have gone nowhere. Because he was good at hiding it. Because I just wanted to leave." And when I told him I was quitting, he smiled and said, "Probably for the best. People like you don't last long anyway." A silence passed between us. Then she leaned in. "I wasn't the first," she said. "He told me that once after a few drinks at the office party. He said, 'You girls always cry wolf. Never learn.'" I swallowed hard. "You believed him?" I asked. I believed he believed it. She leaned back. "Why are you asking me this now?" I looked her in the eyes. "Because I think he hurt someone else. And this time, it wasn't just words." That night, I didn't go home right away. I drove past the police station, past the hospital, past the high school where I taught Shakespeare and symbolism and stories, where villains wore masks. Then I parked in front of my house and just sat there. I could see Dean through the window, sitting in his chair, reading, as if nothing had changed, but everything had. Because now I knew. It wasn't just this one act, this one moment. It was who he was. It always had been. And I had been part of it. Maybe not by doing, but by allowing, by silencing myself, by choosing to survive instead of confront. Inside, he greeted me casually. "You were out late." "Book club," I lied. "Didn't know you still went." "Sometimes I do." He watched me for a second too long, then smiled. "I've been thinking," he said. "Maybe you were right. Maybe we should talk to someone, a lawyer, just in case." I blinked. "That's a good idea," I said softly. "But I already did." His smile faltered. What I spoke to someone. They'll call you tomorrow." The look on his face was almost impressed, like I'd just played a card he hadn't expected. "You're serious about this," he said. "I am. You know this could ruin our family." I nodded. It already did. He stood still for a moment, then sat back down. No yelling, no threats. Just the slow realization that the version of me he'd counted on wasn't here anymore. That night, Liam came downstairs for water. He found me sitting in the dark kitchen staring out the window. "Mom," I turned startled. "Sorry. Didn't mean to wake you." He looked at me carefully, then asked, "Are we going to be okay?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to wrap him in promises I wasn't sure I could keep. But instead, I told him the truth. "I don't know. But I think we're going to be honest. And that's something." He nodded. And for the first time in weeks, I saw a flicker of trust in his eyes. Not in Dean, not in fate, in me. It wasn't until the police began building their case in earnest that I reached out to my sister again, Grace. We hadn't spoken in nearly 5 years, not since the night she stormed out of our mother's funeral reception accusing me of siding with Dean over family, over blood. Back then, I told myself she was dramatic, that she never liked him anyway, that she wanted to stir things up because her own life was a mess. But now, with everything unraveling, I wondered if she had seen something I hadn't, or maybe had refused to see. So I called. When her voice answered hoarse and distant, I almost hung up. "Grace. It's me. Miranda." A pause. Not silence, just calculation. "Wow," she said at last. "Didn't expect to hear from you. What's wrong?" It wasn't a question of concern. It was a question that assumed the answer was everything. We met at a coffee shop halfway between her town and mine. She was older now. Older than I remembered, though, only 2 years my senior. Crow's feet, uncolored hair, deep laugh lines carved by everything but laughter. Still, her eyes were the same sharp, unflinching, always waiting for the truth that people tried to hide. We sat without speaking for a long minute. Then she said, "So is it Dean?" I nodded. She didn't look surprised. "I knew it would be," she said. "What happened?" "He hit someone," I said plainly. "With his car. Left her in the street." Grace stared, then exhaled through her teeth. "And let me guess, he asked you to take the fall." I nodded again, and her face broke into a bitter smile. "I told you," she whispered. "Years ago. But you wouldn't listen. I wasn't ready." She stirred her coffee like it had betrayed her. "He asked me once too," she said. I blinked. "What?" Grace looked up, her voice low but steady. 15 years ago. He cornered me outside a barbecue at your house. Told me he'd gotten into a situation at work, a legal thing, and needed someone to verify he'd been with them during the incident. Just a quick signature. Said it was harmless." I sat frozen. "I refused," she continued. "And do you know what he did? What he turned you against me. Made you believe I was meddling. Made you think I was the problem." My stomach churned. The echoes of those old arguments returned. How I'd defended him, blindly shut her down, told her she was jealous or paranoid. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I truly am." Grace's eyes softened. "Just a fraction." "I don't need an apology," she said. "I just need you to finally see the man for what he is. Not a mistake. Not a good person who slipped. A manipulator. A predator. Someone who sees empathy as leverage." I nodded slowly. "I see it now." We spent the next hour talking not just about Dean, but about everything. Our mother. The way we grieved separately. The things we inherited not just in our genes, but in our choices. Before we left, she squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens next," she said, "don't let guilt put you back under his shadow. You're doing something brave. Don't stop." I nodded. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Good," she said. "Scared means you're doing it anyway." That evening, I came home to a quiet house. Dean was in the living room watching a cooking show like nothing had changed. But he looked up the moment I walked in. Studied me. "You talked to her, didn't you?" he asked. I didn't answer. "I saw the number in your call log. he added. So he had checked my phone. Of course he had. She told you lies, he said. No, I replied. She told me the same story you're telling now, just from the side of the person you used. He stood. I've never heard anyone who didn't ask for it, he said. I stared at him, stunned. He realized what he'd said a second too late. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, I said quietly. And it's why you're going to lose. He took a step forward, but I held up my hand. I've spoken to the police, given them what I have. They're coming, Dean. And if you have any decency left at all, you'll tell the truth before they arrive. His face twisted into rage, into regret, into something unrecognizable. I gave you a life, he hissed. You were nothing when I met you. No, I said. I was free. You just taught me how to forget it. That night, I locked my bedroom door. Not because I feared he'd hurt me, but because I feared how easily he could still twist things if I gave him the chance. Liam slept through the storm. The wind shook the shutters. The rain tapped the windows like someone begging to be let in. But I didn't move. Because I had everything I needed. A sister who had warned me. A woman who had blinked. And a conscience finally clear enough to face the dawn. I didn't expect to see the girl at the hospital again. But there she was in the waiting room outside ICU, knees tucked to her chest, a backpack slouched beside her like a worn-out companion. Her earbuds dangled loose around her neck. Her hair was tied back with a frayed scrunchie. She looked so small for someone bearing so much. I hesitated. Because what do you say to the daughter of the woman your husband left for dead? She noticed me before I could retreat. Her eyes met mine, not curious, not friendly. Wary. Like she knew what I was. Like she'd seen too many adults walk in with guilt and leave with empty condolences. I approached slowly. Casey, I asked. She stood, crossed her arms. Do I know you? I nodded gently. We messaged a few days ago. Miranda Cole. Her lips tightened. Right. The wife. I'm sorry to intrude. She shook her head. You're already here. We stood in awkward silence until I said the only thing that felt real. Your mom moved her hand. I was here. I saw it again. Something in her eyes shifted, a tiny tremor of hope buried beneath layers of practiced numbness. She's trying, I said. She's still in there. I know, she whispered. Everyone talks like she's already gone, but I feel her, like she's listening. She is. We sat in a corner of the waiting room. I offered her the vending machine coffee I had just grabbed, but she waved it off. I'm not here much. She said, eyes on the scuffed tile floor. They keep telling me to focus on school, but I can't concentrate. I sit in class and think about what her last thought was before she hit the ground. Her voice cracked. She didn't cry. My teachers are nice about it. One of them lost his mom in a car accident. He checks in every week. You have people looking out for you, I said. Yeah. But they can't do anything. They can't fix anything. No, I agreed. But someone can. She looked at me. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about you, she said. You're not the one who hit her, but you're close. I know. I want to hate you, she whispered. But I don't. And that makes me feel worse. You don't have to decide anything right now, I said. But I came because you deserve to know something. She sat up straighter. I gave the police the rag he left in the car. I told them the truth. About the night. About the lie he asked me to tell. Her eyes widened. They're going to arrest him. Soon. A long silence. Then barely audible. Good. That night, I sat alone in my car outside the hospital. My phone buzzed. A text from Casey. Thank you. For not protecting him. For believing she matters. I stared at the message for a long time, believing she matters. I thought about how many times I'd minimized myself to keep my marriage intact. How many times I'd said it's not a big deal just to avoid Dean's icy silence. How many times I'd chosen peace over truth, not realizing they weren't the same thing. Adrian mattered. Casey mattered. And maybe I mattered too. When I got home, Liam was on the couch, headphones on, watching some show on his tablet. I sat beside him. "Hey," I said softly. He paused the show, took off one earbud. "What's up?" "There's something I want to ask you." He blinked, wary. "Do you remember the night of the accident? Your dad, did he say anything to you when he came home?" Liam thought. His brow furrowed. He said something weird. What was it? He walked into my room and asked if I'd heard anything. I thought he meant like thunder or sirens or something. "Did you know?" I was asleep. But then he said, "Sometimes people come out of nowhere, like they're asking for it." The breath left my body. I asked what he meant and he said, "Never mind. Go back to sleep." I reached over and held his hand. "Thank you for telling me that. Is Dad going to jail?" "Yes," I said. "He is." Liam stared at the blank television screen for a long moment. "Good." And just like Casey, he meant it. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I was awake. Truly awake for the first time in years. The sound of the wind outside didn't haunt me. The creaks of the floorboards weren't threats. And when the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, it felt like grace, quiet, unexpected, and wholly earned. I didn't know Liam had been listening the night Dean and I fought in the hallway. The conversation hadn't even been loud, if anything. It had been sharp with tension, like a blade pressed to silence. Dean's voice was cold and controlled mine, low and steady. We thought we were alone. We were wrong. Because the next morning, Liam wouldn't look me in the eye. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, spooning cereal into his mouth like it was the only thing he could control in his life. His movements were robotic, too quiet. No music from his phone, no YouTube videos blaring from the corner, just the ticking of the clock louder than breath. "Liam," I said. He didn't respond. I touched his wrist gently. "Sweetheart, look at me." He did, slowly, and I saw it, the hurt, the understanding, the horror. "You hurt us last night," I said softly. His bottom lip trembled. "He threatened you." I nodded. "Yes. You're still here." I swallowed hard. "I'm staying because I need to be here when it ends. I need to make sure it's done right. And then I'll go. We'll go. If that's what you want." He looked down. Then, without looking up, "Why didn't you leave earlier?" It was the question I'd been asking myself in one form or another for 2 decades. "I didn't think I could," I said honestly. And for a long time I believed if I just stayed quiet, things would get better. He nodded. "They didn't." "No, they didn't." He pushed the cereal bowl away, appetite gone. "You always told me to do the right thing. That lying has consequences." "I know," I whispered. "Were you lying too?" All those years I took a breath. I was lying to myself. And maybe to you too. But not to hurt you. To protect you. He didn't reply. "I know that's not good enough. But I promise you, from this point forward, no more lies." He stood up, grabbed his backpack, and walked toward the door. Before he left, he turned back. "I heard everything he said to you," Liam said. "And everything you said back. You're not weak. Just late." Then he was gone. That line echoed through me all day. You're not weak. Just late. It was both a wound and a salve. And maybe that's what healing actually feels like, not comfort, not calm, but clarity. Like finally being able to look in the mirror and see both the hurt and the one holding the hurt. Both guilty and innocent. That afternoon, I made a call to the lead detective, Sloan. "They're starting to unravel," I told him. "I think he suspects I'm cooperating." "Good," he said. "We're close. Can I ask something?" "Of course. What if my son gets dragged into this? What if Dean says Liam knew, or worse, that I involved him? Sloane was quiet a moment. Then we protect him, he said. But Miranda, you're the one doing the right thing here. We'll handle the rest. When I came home that evening, Dean was pacing the kitchen. He looked like he hadn't slept. Where were you? He snapped. At work. I called. You didn't answer. I had students after class. His eyes narrowed. You talked to the police again, didn't you? I didn't answer. He slammed his palm on the counter. Do you even understand what you're doing? You're burning everything down. No, I said calmly. You lit the match. I'm just refusing to blow it out for you. He stared at me for a long time, his breathing sharp, his fingers twitching like they were itching to make a choice. Then he said something I'll never forget. Whatever happens next, it's on you. And I said no. It's finally on you. Later that night I found Liam sitting in the backyard. He'd taken a blanket and curled up under the big oak tree we used to decorate with lights every Christmas. He didn't move when I sat beside him. Is he leaving? He asked. Soon. Will we be okay? I don't know, I said. But we'll be honest. And we'll be free. That's a start. He leaned his head on my shoulder. I don't want to become like him. You won't, I whispered. Because you already know what it looks like when someone chooses silence, and you hated it. That's how I know you're different. He closed his eyes, and we sat there under a tree that had witnessed too many silent winters, now holding the quiet of a truth that had finally been spoken aloud. Desperation in a man like Dean doesn't look like panic. It looks like charm turned acidic. Like a mask slipping but clinging to the edges of his face. It looks like favors wrapped in guilt and threats delivered as whispers. I woke up to the smell of bacon. Dean hadn't made breakfast in months. He stood in the kitchen humming some Sinatra tune, flipping eggs in a pan like we were in the 1950s, and nothing was unraveling around us. Thought I'd make us a real breakfast, he said. I didn't respond. He served me a plate anyway. Bacon, eggs, and toast. A perfect mirror of our first year together back when he used meals as courtship before they became tools of manipulation. I've been thinking, he said, sitting across from me. We should take a break. Get out of town. Just you and me. Clear our heads. I stared at him. Fork untouched. You want to run? He chuckled. No. I want to reset. We've been under stress. Maybe we forgot who we are when we're not buried in pressure. We didn't forget, I said. We changed. Or maybe I just finally opened my eyes. He leaned in. If you think turning me in will give you peace, you're wrong. You think the system cares about you. You think they won't look at you. The wife who said nothing and asked why. They already did, I replied. He blinked. I've told them everything. He stood abruptly, knocking over his coffee cup. You really want to destroy Liam's life like this? I rose too. Calm. No, Dean. You did that. I'm just making sure it stops with you. He grabbed his coat, muttering something under his breath I couldn't hear, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was not relief. It was anticipation, because I knew this wasn't over. That afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Cole, the voice said. This is Adriana's nurse at County General. We had an incident. My heart dropped. What happened? She woke up. Briefly, she was agitated, tried to speak, then passed out again. But her vitals are stabilizing. My hand gripped the counter. She's waking up. Yes. Slowly. But it's happening, I whispered. Does she remember anything? She tried to say something. It sounded like a name. She kept trying to form the letter D. Dean. I thanked her and hung up. Then I texted Detective Sloane. She's starting to remember. It's coming. Dean didn't come home that night. I didn't expect him to. But just in case, I packed a bag for Liam. Just the basics: clothes, toothbrush, the worn hoodie he never traveled without. I called Grace. If anything happens, if Dean comes to the house when I'm not here, or if Liam needs to go somewhere safe. I'm 5 minutes away, she said. Just say the word. Then, you sure you don't want to come now? I'm not leaving until he's gone. Grace was quiet. Just don't wait too long, Miranda. Cornered men lash out. I know. I mean it. The closer the truth gets, the more dangerous he becomes. I looked out the window at the dark street. I think he already is. At 3 a.m. I heard tapping. Not a knock. A deliberate, soft tap on the front door glass. I froze. I looked at the hallway. Liam's door was shut. I crept to the window, peeled the curtain back. Dean stood outside. No coat. Just a hoodie. Hair messy. Eyes. Not angry. Not wild. Empty. I opened the door, an inch chain still locked. What do you want? I asked. He didn't answer at first. Then I can't sleep. That's not my problem anymore. He leaned against the doorframe. I went to the hospital. They wouldn't let me see her. You think showing up now makes it better? I didn't mean for any of this. You meant to flee the scene, Dean. You meant to clean the car. You meant to ask me to lie. Everything else is just consequence. I loved you. You controlled me. I gave you a life. No, I said, you took mine. He looked at me with something between grief and rage, like he couldn't tell the difference anymore. Please, he whispered. Don't let them arrest me. Don't let them make me the monster. You did that all by yourself. And I closed the door, locked it, and finally walked away from it without flinching. In the morning, Sloane called. We've got enough to move, he said. We're picking him up today. I closed my eyes. Be careful. We always are. I looked over at Liam eating quietly at the table. He looked up. Is it time? I nodded. Good, he said. And I believed him. Because this time when the door closed behind Dean, it wouldn't be with fear. It would be with finality. They arrested him at work. The officers were discreet. No sirens, no spectacle. Just a pair of detectives in black suits walking into the office where Dean had spent years perfecting his persona. Where he played the role of the charming director, the dependable mentor, the man with a framed photo of our family on his desk. I watched it happen from my car across the street. He didn't see me. He didn't need to. His hands were behind his back before the receptionist even realized what was happening. His face was pale, his eyes darting to see if anyone had their phones out. Of course they did. These days, shame is documented. And for once, it wasn't mine. When the door to the precinct closed behind him, a part of me thought I would cry, that I would mourn something. Our marriage, his betrayal. The 22 years I spent building a life on a foundation I now knew was rot. But I didn't cry. I exhaled. Long, deep, final. As if my lungs were being handed back to me. Sloane met me in the side lot. He didn't smile, but his face was gentler than usual. It's done, he said. At least the beginning of the end. Did he resist? No. Not physically, but he asked for a lawyer before we could get a word in. He knows the game. I nodded. He'll make bail, Sloane added. You should prepare for that. But we've got him on fleeing the scene, obstruction, and attempted coercion. What about the hit and run? Still waiting on the final report. If Adrienne regains enough memory and testifies, it's sealed. She will, I said. Her daughter told us she woke up again this morning, said the word, Lexus. A long pause passed between us. Then he said, You did the right thing, Miranda. I know, I said. I'm just sorry it took me this long. He tilted his head. You're not the first woman who thought survival looked like silence, but you are one of the few who found her voice before it was too late. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove, No destination in mind, just the rhythm of the road, the hum of tires carrying me toward nothing, and maybe toward something. Eventually, I ended up at the beach. It was gray, windy, and almost entirely empty. Off-season. The kind of day where the waves crash too hard for comfort, but you watch them anyway. I sat on a bench and let the wind whip my hair into knots. And I let myself remember. The first time Dean kissed me and I felt important. The time he yelled at a waiter and said I was too soft when I looked embarrassed. The pregnancy I lost and how he told me not to make it about me. The slow erosion of my voice, not because he stole it, but because I gave it away inch by inch to stay. And now I had it back. When I got home, Liam was on the porch with Grace. They were playing cards, laughing, laughing. I hadn't heard that sound in months. Grace looked up as I pulled into the driveway. She nodded once. Nothing dramatic, just a look that said, "You made it through." I stepped onto the porch and Liam jumped up. Did it happen? It did. He hugged me. Not a polite squeeze. A real hug. Arms tight, face buried in my shoulder. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. I didn't know what to say. So I just held him. Grace stood and stepped aside, giving us space. When Liam finally let go, he looked me in the eyes and said, "Does this mean it's over?" I hesitated. "It means it's starting," I said. He didn't ask for details. He just nodded. Then, like he had been carrying it too long, I had dreams. That he hit someone. That he made you lie. That you disappeared. I gripped his hand. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "Not now. Not ever." That night I made dinner. Nothing special. Just pasta and garlic bread and a salad Grace tossed together. We ate as a family. Grace, Liam, me. Dean's chair sat empty. Not just physically. Symbolically. We didn't talk about him. Not directly. We talked about school. About Grace's garden. About the movie Liam wanted to watch. And when the plates were cleared and the dishwasher hummed in the background, I finally felt it. Stillness. Not peace. Not yet. But the beginning of it. The crack in the armor. The soft return of breath. The trial started on a Wednesday. I wore the same navy dress I'd worn to job interviews back in my 20s, the one that made me feel capable, composed, and in some forgotten way, like myself. Grace came with me. She sat beside me every day, her presence quiet and steady, like a lighthouse you don't notice until you realize you've been drifting toward it all along. Dean sat across the courtroom in a crisp gray suit, uncuffed, calm. He looked like a man giving a presentation, not one fighting for his freedom. His lawyer was expensive, we knew that, and Smooth calling him a family man, a respected member of the community, a pillar. They made me sound like a confused wife, emotional, misled, a woman who misinterpreted her husband's panic and wanted to rewrite history. But I was ready for that. Because this wasn't about their performance. It was about the truth. And the truth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. I took the stand on day 2. My voice didn't shake. I told them everything. About the night of the accident. The rag he used to wipe the bumper. The way he asked me to lie, no told me to. How he stood in the hallway and said, "You'll go to jail if you speak." I felt every eye in that room crawling over me. Some judging, some pitying, some just waiting. But I wasn't speaking for them. I was speaking for Adrian, for Casey, for Liam, for the version of me that stayed quiet too long. And when I stepped down, Grace squeezed my hand. "You were brave," she said. "No," I whispered. "I was honest. That's harder." On the 3rd day, Casey testified. She was composed, dressed in black, her hair tied back, a silver ring on her thumb that she twisted when nervous. She told them how she got the call that night, how the doctors said her mother might not wake up. How she sat in that hospital room for weeks, listening to beeping machines and whispering stories into her mom's ear so she wouldn't forget who she was. She said, "My mother didn't die that night, but a piece of her did." And then, eyes locked on Dean, and the man who left her there knew exactly what he did. The defense tried to poke holes in everything. They said Adrienne stepped into the road too quickly. They said Dean didn't even know he hit someone. They said I had a history of anxiety and maybe fabricated things out of fear or confusion. But Sloan had done his job. He introduced the rag, the surveillance footage from a traffic cam catching Dean's car just minutes before the crash. Testimony from a neighbor who saw Dean cleaning the car late that night. And Adrienne, brave, broken, and blinking at the jury from her wheelchair, testified on day 5. Her voice was weak, but clear. "I remember a pair of headlights," she said. "I remember trying to scream. I remember someone getting out of the car, and then driving away." The courtroom was silent. Even the judge leaned forward. "He looked back," she said. "He saw me." She didn't need to say more. By closing arguments, I couldn't feel my hands. Dean's lawyer painted a portrait of misunderstanding. Said Dean had panicked like any man might. Said he was remorseful, not malicious. But remorse doesn't clean a bumper. Remorse doesn't coach your wife on what lie to tell. Remorse doesn't flee. Our lawyer ended with this: accountability isn't a punishment, it's a mirror. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is stop looking away. The jury took 2 days, 48 hours of pacing, whispers, coffee cups stacked like barricades. When they filed back into the courtroom, I couldn't look up. Not until the foreman said the words, "We find the defendant guilty of fleeing the scene, of obstruction, of reckless endangerment." Dean didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't speak. But for the first time in 22 years, I saw something crack behind his eyes. Not fear, not sadness, powerlessness. And it was almost enough to make me feel sorry for him. Almost. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Microphones, flashes, questions. But I didn't stop. I took Liam's hand and walked through the noise like it couldn't touch us. Like we were already somewhere else, somewhere safer. The day after the verdict, the house was quiet in a way I had never experienced. Not just because Dean was gone, but because for the first time in years there was no dread pacing the hallways, no tension lurking behind closed doors, no waiting for the next mood swing or silent punishment. It was the kind of quiet that begged to be trusted. I wasn't there yet. Liam came downstairs late. His hair was messy, and he wore his favorite hoodie, the one with the sleeves too long, the one I used to patch up every winter. He opened the fridge, stood there for a second, then turned around. "Is it really over?" he asked. I didn't know how to answer that. "It's over for now," I said. "But healing, that's something we'll do every day." He didn't push further. He just nodded. And I saw something soften in his shoulders. A release. Maybe that's what safety looks like, not a locked door, but a child finally able to relax. Dean was sentenced 2 weeks later. 3 years in prison. Not nearly enough if you ask me, but enough for a start. The judge spoke clearly. "Your actions reflect not just cowardice, but deliberate manipulation. You left a woman to die and tried to use your own wife as a shield." Dean didn't speak at his sentencing. No apology, no breakdown, just silence. I used to find that silence intimidating. Now I know it for what it is. Emptiness. Grace stayed with us for a while. She cooked dinners, told Liam stories about their grandmother, the funny ones, not the tragic ones. She helped me clear out the attic. We found boxes of Dean's old paperwork, photos, dusty keepsakes I didn't remember saving. I put most of it in a donation box, but one photo, the 3 of us at a state park, Liam on Dean's shoulders, I kept. Not for sentiment. For proof that even lies can look beautiful in the moment. I tucked it into a drawer I rarely open, to remind myself how far we'd come. One afternoon, Casey and Adrienne came by. Adrienne had regained partial mobility in her left side. Her voice was slow, deliberate, but powerful. We sat in the backyard sipping lemonade and talking about anything but the trial. "I didn't think I'd live," Adrienne said plainly. "And now I have to figure out how to live all over again." "You will," I said. "You already are." She looked at me and smiled, not with gratitude but recognition. "I didn't realize how many women live their lives half asleep," she said. "I was one of them," I replied. "Now I can't unsee the truth." Casey sat beside her mother, quiet but steady. "She's stronger than she's ever been," she said. "She always was," Adrienne corrected. "She just finally has room to show it." When they left, Liam came out to the garden and handed me a notebook. "What's this?" I asked. I started writing. Just thoughts. Stuff I couldn't say out loud. I opened it. First page. "What if your hero turns out to be the villain?" I looked up at him. "Can I read it?" He nodded. And I did. Every word. Every messy, beautiful line. He wasn't just surviving this. He was finding himself through it. And that made all the rest worth it. That night I went for a walk alone. The stars were sharp and clear, the kind of sky that makes you feel small and powerful at the same time. I passed the old park bench where Dean proposed. I passed the church where we married. I passed the school Liam once played t-ball behind back, when everything still seemed possible. But I didn't grieve. I let those places belong to the past, because they did. And I had no interest in dragging ghosts into the future. My name is Miranda Cole, and the day my husband was sentenced wasn't the day I felt free. Freedom came slower, quieter. It came in the form of empty space room I hadn't had before to breathe, to think, to be. It came when I realized I didn't need to check the locks 3 times before bed. It came when I woke up and didn't flinch at silence. It came when I walked into a room and didn't feel the need to apologize for taking up space in it. And yes, it came when I looked at my son and saw that he was okay. Maybe even better. I started teaching again. Not full-time, just a literature course at the community center, mostly women my age. Some starting over after divorce. Some escaping situations that looked an awful lot like mine. Some just needing stories to carry them through. We read authors who told the truth even when it was ugly. On the last day of class, I told them something I'd never said aloud. Sometimes survival looks like silence, but healing only begins the moment you speak. No one spoke for a second. Then one woman, quiet all semester, whispered, "Thank you." I nodded, because I understood. Liam's writing won him a summer workshop spot at the university. He printed out the acceptance email and taped it to the fridge right over the spot where Dean's calendar used to hang. Progress, I guess, has a strange kind of poetry. Grace came by once a week now, always with something warm from her kitchen and something sharp from her mouth. She had become the thread that sewed our little family back together. "Next time you pick a man," she said one night over soup, "make sure he's not just charming. Make sure he's kind." "I'm not picking anyone for a while," I told her. She raised a brow. Smart. We never heard from Dean again. He didn't write, didn't call. And when the divorce papers went through, he signed them without note or resistance. It was anticlimactic. But maybe that was fitting. Because in the end, he wasn't the storm. He was the dam, and once it broke, the real flood was truth. Cleansing and relentless. And now the ground is finally dry. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't spoken up. If I'd taken the fall. Lied to the police. Lied to my son. Lied to myself. Where would I be? But then I remember Casey's eyes, Adrienne's voice, Liam's hands when he handed me that journal. And I know I did the only thing I could live with, even if it cost me everything I thought I had. Because the truth saved us, all of us. So if you're still watching, and you've made it this far, here's what I'll leave you with. Secrets rot in silence. But truth, even when it burns, is the only thing that can rebuild. If someone you love asks you to carry their sin, their crime, their shame, remember that love doesn't ask for sacrifice. Manipulation does. You are not responsible for someone else's wrongdoings, no matter what vows you took, no matter how long you stayed. You are not a shield. You are not a scapegoat. You are not theirs. You are your own. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been in a situation where you were pressured to stay quiet, I see you. I believe you. You're not alone.